Okay, so the form for the block wall was poured yesterday. It turned out well. I don't think there was any bowing of the boards. I had it well supported on the outside of the boards. I had, as you can see, drove pins. I had those wooden stakes that I drove down and attached to the forms. That was mainly to level it, but it's also going to hold the forms. And then I filled in around the forms, plus I obviously filled in inside the forms and tapped it down. And I don't think there was any bowing that I could see, and really I didn't have much time to worry about that. I was trying to pour it, but yeah, it turned out pretty good. So how I mixed the concrete was I would put a fair amount of water in it above the bolts inside, the bottom bolts inside of the mixer. I'd put one bag in and I'd mix it, and of course it would be quite wet. So then I'd stop it and I'd put another bag in and I'd mix it. And then of course that part was quite dry. And I only use the hose. I don't use any measurement. So then I would drop it down to where it's about 45 degrees, and I would just start adding water. And when the concrete came to a point that it was starting to roll over, and it would do like a thump and a thump. And I think anybody that mixes concrete will know exactly what I mean. So when it came to the consistency of that, I would be spraying the back of the mixer in order to make sure that all the concrete got wetted down. So when it came to that point, I would put it up one notch. I don't know if it'd be 60 degrees, I'm not really quite sure. And I would let that mix. And like I said in my previous video, that I would have a mixture already mixed, and I'd pour it into the wheelbarrow, and then I would mix another 2 bags of concrete. And like I said, I would let it sit there and mix. Well, in the time it took me to take the wheelbarrow full of concrete and move it over here and pour it into the form, and obviously take tools. I use that, it's not a hoe, but it's something like a hoe, and I just pull the concrete up, and then I would take 2x4 and kind of get it to the form level. So that took 5 minutes, 8 minutes maybe, depending on what stage it was in. So while I was doing that, the mixer was mixing the concrete. So by the time I was done with pouring the concrete and kind of leveling it to a certain degree, then I would walk over and pour the concrete into the wheelbarrow, back it off, and then I would add 2 more bags of concrete and I start the mixing process again. And what I found is that in that 5 to 8 minutes where it was just sitting there mixing, that it would be a real good consistency. It actually would lose some of the moisture because the reaction probably already started. But it was a good consistency, and it was well mixed. So it just seemed like it was a real good mixture. And from what I've seen on some videos, that you want enough water in your concrete, but you don't want too much. The more water you have in your concrete, the less strength you're going to have in your concrete. Because the way science works is, as the concrete cures, it consumes the water and turns it into a hot hydroxide, I guess. So during the curing process, it's consuming the water, and that, I think that is why concrete shrinks. So the less amount of water you have in your concrete, the less shrinkage you're going to have in your concrete, and the less chance of it cracking, if that makes sense to anybody. So I don't want to make this too long, but that's kind of how I mix my concrete. And I've only done this pad and this form, so it's not like I'm any kind of professional, but I found that worked for me. And if anybody is just a newcomer to it and a do-it-yourselfer, I hope this will help them out.